evening to you. It's 8:30 Atlantic Standard Time in the PM. It's a Monday night. It means it's beyond the headlines. My name is Colin Dowe. I'll serve as your host, and thank you so very much for joining us this evening and giving us part of your Monday evening. So whether you're at home looking at us on GBN television, whether you're listening to us on GBN radio or viewing via any of our social media platforms, thank you so very much for sharing with us. And this evening we're going to look at the future of the poultry under new leadership, and really it's going to be a juicy and tasty conversation. And we have two of the newly appointed executive members of the Grenada Association of Poultry Producers. Let me just ask the gentlemen, well, good evening to you, and I'll ask you each to introduce yourselves. Mr. President?
Okay, so my name is Jeremy Thomas. We would have recently had the election on September 5th. So I was elected as the president, and I've been in the Poultry Association. I've been a member of the Poultry Association for the past 4 or so years, but I've been a poultry farmer for about maybe 15 or more years. So it's only recently I got heavily involved, and I got, started to do poultry on a commercial scale. And after joining the association, the first time I came in, I was part of the previous executive as a secretary, and I came in and I just saw an opportunity to improve the industry. And real quickly after I joined, I kind of became sort of the main person doing a lot of the background work and basically keeping it running. So eventually, a lot of farmers, got to know me, and they decided they wanted to elect me as president.
Well, the reward for hard work is more work. You're duly qualified. Mr. VP, if you would introduce yourself.
Okay, good evening to the listening public and the watching public. Thank you for having us on the program tonight, Mr. Dowe.
Okay.
My name is Nugent Bernard. I'm from Victoria, Parish of St. Mark's. I am recently retired from the Ministry of Agriculture.
Okay.
Serve as the livestock officer. I'm a trained livestock productionist. In fact, I'm trained in tropical animal science and production.
Okay.
Previously, whilst I was at the ministry, I had the tint of working along with the Poultry Association, trying to bring some balance to the association. And now that I've retired, not that I have more time on my hand, but that I think that I have something to give back based on my training and experience.
I believe retired people are even more busy than those of us who have full-time jobs.
Obviously. So the election was called, and I decided to throw in my bit because I think I can make a contribution towards the not just poultry industry but livestock industry in general.
Okay.
And I'm not only here from a technical standpoint, but I've been a livestock farmer doing sheep and goat poultry for the last couple of years.
Okay, all right. And I would certainly want to get into the science of this because that's important. But just as a kickoff, Jeremy, if you can share some background on the association. How long has it existed? What really is the mission and vision of the Grenada Association of Poultry Production?
Well, the mission has always been to protect and promote, as it's written, to protect and promote the hatching and raising of baby chicks, and to promote marketing, processing of poultry meat and eggs, and the marketing of its products. Mm-hmm. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're supposed to be helping the farmers with. It was established around 2000. It's been in operation for some time before that, before it was officially registered in 2000. So at that time I was not a part of anything poultry.
You are a chick yourself.
Basically.
All right. So you are registered as a cooperative. It is how, or as a trades union? How are you registered?
So it's currently registered as a non-profit organization, and that's actually something that was done recently. So over the years things have been a little disorganized. It has been registered as a non-profit, but there was an issue with the name, so there was some conflict there in terms of how it's registered, whether it's as a corporation or a non-profit. So we actually got that sorted out just last year, so we're officially registered as a non-profit.
What is your membership like in terms of how many farmers make up the association?
Well, those numbers have been going down, unfortunately, over the last few years. Currently, we have just under 200, I would say, active farmers who've been recently, involved in the production of eggs and meat within the past year or so. They're just under 200. Those are the active farmers. In terms of registered members, that's something that we just recently started to get people involved in again, because there are people who are, into poultry, but they're not actually registered with the association and paying dues, all of that.
Because I believe I saw the number close to 450 people actively involved in poultry farming, and when we look at the number employed was over 700.
Yes.
Is that an accurate reflection?
So when I say they're just under 200, those would be the farmers who mostly interact with the poultry association.
Right.
So there are a lot of poultry farmers who, they purchase their chicks elsewhere and they're involved in the poultry industry, but not directly with the poultry association.
Okay.
If I should just add here, I'm not doubting the latest figures, but I do not know the source of the information. But what I do know is the last census, if we should go by the last census, which was in 2012, it showed that we had 1,200 registered farmers and 200 non-registered farmers.
Okay.
So that you would see from that time to now there has been a significant shift in terms of numbers of active members. And a number of things have been responsible for that. COVID being one of the main factors.
Okay. So you saw people coming out of the industry post-COVID, as opposed to, I thought we all went back to the land because of COVID. I mean, we did the whole thrust towards growing what we eat and eating what we grow and the like.
Well, that is the intention, but you would realize that if you're doing this thing for profit, with the constant increase or rise in price of feed and grain, and even the cost of the old chick, right? Some farmers have found it unmanageable, and therefore some of them.
I would want to get into the challenges, and we'll do so right now, actually. But one more question prior: are only farmers members of the association or eligible to be members of the association, or do we have ancillary services that can join in? So I'm a shopkeeper. Can I be a member of the poultry producers, or is it only the farmers that the association is geared towards?
Well, it's not necessarily only to farmers, but anyone directly or indirectly involved in the poultry industry. So you don't have to be a farmer.
Okay. All right. And you're getting into some of the challenges. So what are some of the challenges that are faced by the poultry industry in Grenada? Oh, it's so many. You can split it up.
Well, if you ask any farmer now, I would say the number one complaint is the cost of feed. A lot of farmers are saying poultry is, not profitable. I wouldn't say it's not profitable, but with the cost of production, it could be challenging, and there are some other issues we face with related to management, of the pen.
So let's just take them one by one. We're saying the cost of inputs. Let's go just there generally. Feed is one. Where do you typically get your feed?
Oh, Caribbean Agro.
Okay. Is there any system that exists or you believe can exist that can bring about a reduction in that input feed?
Well, if a system can exist, yes. Does it currently exist? That's something we're working on.
What are some of the drivers for the high cost? Because everyone will have their own challenges. So the main producer of the feed would have their own challenges. I don't believe that they're just price gouging, right? So, what are some of the challenges that they may have that you'd want to bring to the fore as well? Because you'd have to partner with their costs going down. Your cost price of feed can also go down. Are there some things that they would have cited that would be responsible for the high cost of feed?
You're referring to the farmers?
No, for the feed itself, so I'm talking now Caribbean Agro, if that's your main source.
Okay, well, officially we don't have any information at the moment to say, well, official information as to why the feed price is going up, other than just generally grain prices are going up.
Okay. What are some of the other challenges? Are we still, freight, is that a problem? Are we still importing, and what are we importing? So are we still importing chicks, for example, on a large scale from Barbados? And if that is true, how has freight prices impacted the overall cost of operations?
Yeah, well, the freight has been a significant impact over the last 2 years, especially. Mostly during COVID. After COVID, we would have gotten our imports from Barbados. We still do. It used to come through with Liat. Now, Liat is no longer in operation, and we have to charter flights.
Okay.
And with the cost of aviation fuel going up, it doesn't seem proportional, but the price of freight is going up a lot more than the cost of aviation fuel. In the last 2 years, the cost of freight to bring in a box of chicks would have been like under $100 Barbados dollars, the cost per box of chicks, box of 100 chicks. And just recently, we've had freight prices as high as 130.
Okay.
So it's
so you're looking at a 30% or more increase in the freight.
Yeah, those it's not constant. Sometimes it'll be 120. So it's going up and down, but it's on an upward trend. It's skyrocketing.
Who organizes the charter? Because you said you moved from using a commercial airline using their cargo facility, Liat, to now having to charter aircrafts to bring in the chicks. Who organizes this? Is this business places, entities in Grenada, or is it the Poultry Producers Association?
So it's the hatchery in Barbados where we get our chicks from. They would organize everything, the freight and everything, and they would give us one invoice for chicks and freight combined.
Okay, so they sell to you as an association, and then you distribute to farmers. How does it work?
Yeah, so the association would import a large quantity. We have to charter a flight, so you have to fill the flight to make it more efficient. So the association would do the bulk of the imports along with Nuggins. They would import. We both generally use the same flight.
Okay.
And we charter the chicks, and then once it comes in, we distribute.
Okay.
I should chime in here. The challenges faced by the poultry industry in Grenada is not diverse to how the industry itself is structured. Right? Now, if you should permit, we operate in an environment, and that is the local poultry industry.
Right.
Now, if you take it on a global level, the poultry industry is one of the most organized industry. It's one of the fastest growing industry. It's $1 billion industry, and there are a lot of potential for making money in that industry. But part of the problem that we face as a small island, one, we are very fragmented, very disorganized, right? So we cannot be part of an organization of a global industry that is organized, and we being part of it, we disorganize. Right? So when it comes for things like inputs, the production of the old chicks from day one up to slaughter, we do not have any control over the old chicks, right? Because they are imported.
Right.
We do not have any control over the feed and all the ingredients that go into the feed. They are imported, right? So when you have a situation where corn is now in competition, because you're using corn now to make fuel, corn is used as a staple in almost everything, just name it. Cornflakes, conkles, you know. So you have a growing human population with a growing demand for food. And at the same time, that same food source is competing with poultry production. It's obvious, we're not growing it. So if we're not growing it, whenever a little thing, you know, like a war, like for example in Ukraine, you would hear they say, hey, well, because of the war and logistics and things, price gone up. Right? Then you'll hear they say, look, eggs are scarce, that is hatching eggs are scarce, and boom, Barbados tell you, well, we had to pay more for eggs, therefore you have to pay more for chicken. And then the war again, you have freight going up, right? So all the dynamics that goes into production of chicken from the
acquisition of the hatching eggs.
Yes, right. To the table, right? It's a process that we largely do not have much control over. So therefore, how do we navigate in that situation? It must be a situation where we have to be organized in what we do. So we're talking about amalgamation in some cases. Volume has a lot. The greater your volume is the less your cost of production, right? So those are factors that we need to look to, you know. And part of the constraints again, you would have not adequate policies, infrastructure, access to financing, right? So all those are factors that are playing out, but that is affecting us locally, that we need to have a real conversation as to how do we come together to shape the kind of industry that we want.
Okay. So the challenge you're saying, at least one of the challenges, one of collaboration. And as an association, Mr. President, how can you get your members to be stronger collaborators that you can get, and well, as collaborators, it may mean amalgamation, as Nugent just pointed to, but certainly to accomplish economies of scale, so the overall price of operations will go down, which means that you can operate more efficiently and my spend will be less.
Yeah, so well, I think firstly, the association itself needs better collaboration. Over the years, the executive members, after being elected, within sometimes months, you'll have, you know, members quitting and things just going into disarray again, and that's been happening for a number of years now. So I think Farmers First needs to see that the association, we have a strong association. There's 7 executive members, you know, so if they see collaboration among the executive, because for the most part, the farmers will generally know 1 or 2 persons on the executive and they don't know who the rest of the people are.
So let's get an opportunity. Who's your executive and where they're from?
Okay, well, I already introduced myself. I'm the president. Mr. Bernal is the vice president. So we have.
And let's go say where you're from, just in terms of parishes. I know.
Oh, okay.
Well, you said Victoria, right?
Yeah, I'm from Mungay, St. George's. So we have a treasurer. That's Miss Iva Holas. She's from St. Andrew. We have our secretary, Miss Melinda Smith, and she's from
St. John's.
St. John's. And our assistant secretary, Mr. Loxley Dick, is from St. Andrew. And we have 2 floor members, Norbert Julian from St. Andrew and Philip Andrew from St. George's. Okay. So those are our 7 members, and we just really working to, you know, collaborate as a team for us, show that we have a strong executive, because as I said in previous years, very disoriented, disorganized. So
what was the turnout like when you had your General Assembly, I guess, and the election of officers? Because you said you have just under 200 active members within the association. What was the turnout like?
The turnout was not as large as it should have been for, you know, 200 active persons buying chickens over the past year or so. At the annual general meeting where we had our elections, there was just over 40-something persons present.
All right. Let's just stick to some of the challenges again. Is electricity a challenge?
To an extent. Again, let me add first before I answer that. Part of the issue that we face is that I am very doubtful as to how much of the science that our farmers really know.
Right.
Now, a farmer might tell you he's in that for 20 years. You could be in it for 20 years and doing it wrong.
You can do the wrong thing for 20 years, correct?
And so I'm saying this to say that the use of electricity, in my view and from the science, is only restrictive to the first 2 weeks of the life of the birds when you're doing broiler production.
Okay.
Right? And that is primarily not for light, but for heat.
Yes.
Okay.
To provide heat, because when the birds come from hatching,
They have no feathers.
no feathers, they
Right.
come under temperature about 102 degrees, right? So to maintain that, and because they have no feathers, it means that the thermoregulatory system of that bird is not yet activated,
Right.
right? So it's activated only after 2 weeks. So you need to maintain that temperature in order to give the bird what we call a right start. Right, so then farmers with, let's say, 1,000, 3,400 birds burning that light, that heat bulb constantly for 2 weeks
Right.
could be a challenge in terms of cost based on the cost of electricity.
Right. And this you said is primarily for the broiler production.
Yeah.
Okay. All
Layer
right.
production, that only comes at the latter part of the year when we get shorter days, right? Now, every laying hen needs at least 16 hours of sunlight. All right, because light triggers the laying process.
Okay.
And when that amount of light is lessened in the latter part of the year, you hear people complain. Most farmers will complain, "Hey, we had the birds and it's not laying." Right?
Well, we can't afford that because that's Christmas and that's cake.
Exactly. So then what you need to do, and maybe again much farmers, I don't know how much you know of that, you need to extend the hours of light by turning on that electricity maybe for additional 2 hours or 4 hours in the evening. That again could be additional cost.
Okay, okay. Access to running water, is this a challenge that farmers would face?
I don't think so.
Well, it will depend on the location. Yeah, some farmers have issues. They would have their barrels, and when they have water available, they fill it up because they don't always get running water. Yeah, so it really depends on the location.
Okay. Labor, and what inputs are needed when we think of labor? So farmers need help. We talk about an age. We have 2 young men with me, but generally talk about an aging farmers population. I believe the poultry farmers are probably younger than we would see for nutmeg and cocoa, etc. But what type of labor is needed for a successful poultry farm to be operating?
Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing broiler production, you need somebody to ensure that the birds get feed and water. Adequate, let me add, adequate amounts of feed and water on a daily basis. And then, because it's a 6-week cycle in most cases, then you will need assistance or labor for slaughtering, which is the most tedious part, of that job.
My next question is, what type of training is needed? Because you spoke of the science, and I think it's important because we want to do this well, and we do have the health and safety concerns of our nation in our hands. So, what type of training is needed for each category of employee on a poultry farm?
Well, they will need to know how to management and handling, of birds from the whole up to slaughtering, management and handling of birds from day 1 up to the first egg, laying, and then picking up of the eggs, handling them properly, making sure they are clean, and everything. Those are the areas that people need to be trained in.
Is it can poor handling cause eggs to, quote unquote, spoil faster?
Yes. There are some farmers that actually soak them to clean them. And there is a reason why when an egg is laid, you see this kind of slimy stuff on it, right? Now, this is the protective layer for that egg in order to increase its shelf life.
Okay.
So that when you actually wash the egg,
you wash off the protection
and you shorten the life of
okay,
the egg.
Okay. And then my next question, which is naturally, is where do one get trained in order to be an efficient and effective poultry farmer or employee on a poultry farm?
TAMCC.
So there has been occasional training sessions. That's something that should probably be done more often because many farmers actually are not aware. Recently there was a workshop at the stadium where someone from Jamaica would have come and let us know all of the criteria for handling eggs properly, and it was a learning experience for many farmers, hearing that you shouldn't wash the eggs, as you were saying, it's best to wipe it clean, if you can, to avoid wetting it at all. Yeah, that's the best,
And that too will be labor intensive, of course, which is probably why you just soak them and wash them off.
But a lot of that depends on the condition of your pen as well. If you have clean nesting boxes and it's properly set up, most of the eggs will be laid in the nesting boxes and they barely need any cleaning. Now, occasionally the chicks would still lay some eggs on the ground and they wouldn't be very clean. But
you see, part of the challenge we have just to add is that because the poultry industries are dynamic and is based on science, a lot of research has been put into, and now we have production systems where you no longer have to have fowls laying in the litter. They have what they call the rollout box, right? But the thing about it is, if you want to make money, you have to invest money. And there is a reluctancy sometimes on the part of farmers. They want the thing, but they don't want to invest in it, right? And so that is one way that you could even cut back on your labor, right? If you modernize, right, your labor production system, it makes it much friendlier and much easier for you to handle. So now we have, right now trending is what they call layer cages. Right, I had the opportunity, to bring in some from China, right? And these cages and them, they are designed so nicely that it's all wire, wire made. So when the birds lay, the egg just roll out. You can actually pick up that egg as it roll out and put it in the, in the flat or in what we call the tray, right? And then, move it to market. So that there is no need now for wiping and cleaning, or very little need for wiping and cleaning. But most farmers, to do that, you have to spend the money. And even when I was in the ministry, we used to promote layer boxes, the rollout layer boxes, right? Now we'd have to go and buy ply. How much for a sheet of ply? Almost $200, right? So sometimes when farmers look at the cost to give them the kind of efficiency that they want, there's always a drawback. And with that drawback, you have more intensive labor required for you to have your...
But long term, that'll cost you more.
Yes, of course. Yes, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
We mentioned by way of training, I believe TAMCC has an associate degree that is run out of Maribor
campus. Yeah.
What level are those graduates coming in at for the poultry industry?
Well, as I knew it before, you used to have school leaving people being eligible to do that course. Now, the people who go to farm school, TAMCC campus, they come in from secondary school, maybe with agriculture, right? But even that in itself, is a challenge because the intake, is not very many.
And then the question is, how do we make agriculture sexy? How do we make poultry farming sexy? I will talk your business. There's money in poultry.
Of course.
And there's a lot of money. As you said, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Our imports is significant in Grenada. And the poultry producers are making only a small dent in terms of what is consumed in Grenada. From what the number I have is about 5% of what we consume is produced locally. So how do we incentivize youngsters? How do we expose them that this is a viable industry? And it's really no competition to who is currently there, because you have a 95% to make up.
Well, I think they should be able to see for themselves. I think that is the best example. Well, I wouldn't say the best, but that is a good way. When they see what's happening, when they see their parents in it, unfortunately, as it is now, for many farmers, it's not going as well as they'd like it to go. So you actually have farmers complaining that their children don't want to take over and don't want to continue. So I think it starts with the whole thing with the training and better farm management. People just need to see that their parents it's profitable. People need to see that it's profitable. Okay. But I would say that there actually are I would say a significant number of young persons into farming right now, poultry farming specifically. I've had the opportunity of being at the airport and doing a lot of the distribution, and there's more of the older folks in it, but I would say that there's a fair number of younger persons as well.
All right. It's time for our first break, but when we come back, I want to see how we can transition the poultry industry from being a hustle to being a more established industry, and for it to grow some more. So, viewers and listeners, we'll be right back.
The Grenada Motor Club will be hosting its second and final international drag racing event for 2024 at Pearls International Speedway on September 28th and 29th. Expect the fastest set of drag cars and bikes the Caribbean has to offer. September 27th, meet and greet at Lavo Lanes. September 28th, test and tune bracket race qualifiers. And after drags, chill out at Sizzle Bar and Lounge. September 29th, drag race finals at Pearls International Speedway. There will be a special guest appearance by one of the Caribbean's top drag racers and a special drift performance by one of the Caribbean's top drifter. Mark the dates, September 28th and 29th at Pearls International Speedway is the place to be. You don't want to miss this one.
Where are you come out? Where are you from? How was leave free promotion? It is all budget. Somebody send out the warning.
Spend $50 or more at any Hubbard's department or participating outlets for a chance to win free fuel, free drinks, free prizes, free property and vehicular insurance, free Hub TV and internet, free electricity, free coke, free water, free cooking gas, free paint supplies, free Dutch Lady milk, free passes to Sunshine promotion events for 2024, free groceries, all for one whole year, and every winner receives a free lunch package. But that's not all. Drive away in style in a brand new Isuzu D-Max. It sits, it doesn't guzzle. So fill out your entries and place them into the marked entry boxes. This promotion is brought to you in part by Dutch Lady, Danny, Promo, Supreme Bleach, Creative Chef, Grenlac, Floor, Salt Petroleum, Grenadian General Insurance Company Limited, Coca-Cola, Sunshine Promotion, Caribberies, Coop Bag, Sesame Spain, and Food Fear. Promotion runs from April 2nd to December 24. Terms and conditions apply.
GRENDEC Community Partnership Initiative.
The theme for the science fair is water and energy strategies, the key to sustainable development. It encourages students, it promotes caring for the environment, sustainable development, and we want the students to display practical activities and real-life situations of what is really going on out in their environment. And we look forward to companies like Grenlec continuing to see the relevance and significance of something like a national science fair.
GRENDEC, energizing our community.
As we get ready to give thanks, the long Thanksgiving weekend. Legends Promotions presents the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Grenada Trade Center at 7:30 p.m. Featuring the 1980 Calypso Monarch Survivor. Together with Stubbles. 10 times Calypso Monarch Scholar. Alongside Luta, Tobago Cuso, and 7 times Soca and 10 times Road March King. Super Blue. Super Blue. Tickets cost $16 and are available at all Gittins Healthcare Pharmacies, Wall Street, Grenville, and Guelph. Springs Shopping Center, St. David's Pharmacy, Clear Vision Eye Care Center, on the Carinage, and Gittins Pharmacy, St. George's. It's the 18th annual Hubbard's Legends in Concert, Saturday, October 26th, Thanksgiving weekend, Grenada Trade Center, 7:30 p.m. You can't afford to miss this one.
Back, listeners and viewers, and we're talking about the future of the poultry industry here in Grenada. One of the points that came out earlier is that we moved from using cargo aircrafts to having to charter aircrafts to bring in chicks. Hatcheries typically based in Barbados. Any hatching taking place here in Grenada? What will it take for us to have a hatchery in Grenada, which will eliminate the need for us to be importing and dependent on Barbados for this very key input?
So over the years, we've had hatcheries in Grenada. They've operated for a while, and they've shut down for one reason or another. I wouldn't have all the details on why they all shut down, but what I could say is at the moment, we do have one recently established hatchery. It's just about to begin operations, within this year right now. So that's something we're looking forward to. We, hope to open negotiations with them and, review the possibilities.
Is this something that is a government entity? Is it private sector? Is it getting significant assistance from government, in whichever way, whether it's, seed funding through friendly governments or agencies or concessions, just to make sure that, one, they can be sustainable and your cost is reduced?
So as far as I know, it is a private entity. They have received some funding from GIDC. They've received assistance. Now, I don't know the full detail of the assistance, but GIDC was involved.
Okay.
If I should just add on this, as Jeremy has alluded, we have had hatcheries over the years, but all of them has gone, to naught. And then there must be a reason.
Right.
And again, I believe from my standpoint, we are not taking enough time to do the necessary. And that is, of course, the marketing research, right? We live in a global competitive environment, and we're getting chickens from Barbados. Now, anything coming locally must be able to match what we're getting from Barbados, or even outperform, because you're moving now to consumer confidence in a producer that is almost reliable, almost affordable, right, and dependable. Something new coming on the stream. The question would beg, how reliable would it be? How dependable would it be? How affordable would the chickens be? How sustainable? Because you could come new on the market and offer your chicken $1 less. But is it a sham only to enter the market, and then when you think you would have gained some, a few customers' confidence, you just see your price keep rising, right, and eventually come back almost same thing.
Well, and the viability of the birds as well, because that too would be of concern. If you're losing 20% and it's local, but you lose 10% although imported, then I would probably stay imported.
You see, if we could get it right, having a hatchery in Grenada would increase profitability and even livability of the birds. Right? Because what happens to this chicken when they come from hatching, the first couple of days is so critical to the survivability of the birds. We are not sure of that. Right. Sometimes when we get birds from Barbados, they're not day old. We take them as day old, but it could be sometime 2 days old.
Right.
Now, what happens when they come out of the hatchery to when they landed in Grenada. That window is so critical. Now, if it is produced in Grenada, then we could have more management, to see that that critical aspect, is being looked at. So the hatchery is a good idea, but do we really need a hatchery in Grenada now, given the fact that Barbados is supplying chicken? And if we do need one, what volume are we going to produce? So those are questions that we must answer, and not just saying that we look. Because, for example, the question you're asking, I know a farmer who does 15,000 birds, and he's about the biggest local broiler producer in Grenada. He has a capacity of 12,000. Right? Is Crossdale, Colin?
Yeah, from
right?
chicken farms. Yeah.
They have a capacity of 75,000. Excellent Farm has a capacity of 15,000. Of 50,000. Now, if you take all these three entities of themselves being able to produce their own chickens for their own business, then the question would beg, how much more do we need from Barbados? Or do we really need a hatchery, in the midst of all that? So there has to be some form of dialogue, collaboration, and a deliberate effort to see how we can put this thing together.
Okay, understood. So let's just talk just in terms of the business aspects. Do poultry farmers know how much they make? I know sometimes, you're in a business, money is passing through your hands, but whether or not you have a good sense of this is what your balance sheet looks like in terms of inputs, your expenses, the revenue generated, how profitable the business is, what is your margin on a bird, etc. Do poultry farmers drill down into these details?
So that's something that we also need to include in some of the training sessions that we would like to have, because a lot of the farmers, record keeping is something that is lacking in the poultry industry. A lot of farmers, some are aware, and some have a general idea, but proper records, that's really something we need to improve.
Okay.
If you ask me, I'll tell you, more likely than not.
Right.
Because from what I have seen in my experience working with farmers, most farmers do not know the cost of production. And that is why we live in an environment where farmers are just price takers. You go to Foodlands, you go to Real Value, they tell you how much it is they're paying, right? Now, there's nothing wrong in a man telling you how much he's paying, but if you know what is your cost of production, you will know whether or not you're accepting that price or you want something more, right? And as Jeremy alluded, because farmers do not keep records, right? Record keeping is so important. This is the mechanism and tool that allows you to make decisions. Right? And if that is absent, then that is one serious aspect of your business practice that you're missing.
And should record keeping also include a registry of the lineage of birds?
Of course. And that again is part of the problem we have in why farmers feel that they are not making. Because we're getting most of our chickens from Barbados. We hardly could tell what breed of chicken it is, because the reality is, because it's a science, every breed of chicken, or let's say broilers, broiler chick, every breed has a different feeding regime, right? And that feeding regime is based on scientific research in terms of fast growth rate, efficient feed conversion, meat to feed to meat ratio, right? And then if we do not know what we're getting, then how do we know to manage?
Right.
So those are gaps that need to be closed.
You mentioned the whole idea of being price takers. What type of access do we have markets that you produce and then you go by a supermarket and see whether they have room for you on their shelves or not, or you stop by, you call a hotel to see if they need eggs today? I mean, how do you access markets in Grenada, Jeremy?
Well, currently we have because the production right now, local production is in high demand right now. So compared to the amount that we produce, the demand is much more than the supply. So for now, we have a good situation in which it's not that difficult to market local chicken. As production goes up now, that's something we would need to look into. But for the most part right now, the supermarkets are asking for more. So most farmers, there are occasions when, I think one of the supermarkets, they had a problem with the freezer or something, and we had a little gap there where people were struggling to get the birds sold, but for the most part the supermarkets are asking for more at this point.
If I should add, in some jurisdiction you have real value actually have farmers, well, maybe contracted, because those farmers they sell directly. In the case of farm and garden, what I do know, for farmers who buy chicken from farm and garden, there is always an easy access to sell to the foodlands.
Right. Okay.
Right? So yeah. So
one hand can clap.
yeah.
Okay. All right. And what's about the other aspects? So things like packaging, because yes, there's a high demand. So you'll get rid of all your chicken just because there is a high demand. But again, we will want quality. So packaging of your chicks, the cuts, is it that you just bring the whole chicks to the supermarkets, for example, or to the restaurants, and they handle? Do we have farmers who will get into giving various cuts and sell those to the supermarkets? How is it gone about?
Well, for the most part, the supermarkets would handle the cutting and the selling the parts. So the farmers would be bringing in the whole chicks, and the supermarkets take it. They would remove the parts, let's say a broken wings or whatever. They would return that to the farmer, and they will keep the quality parts.
we do have a few situations where farmers do parts in.
Well, yes, I know one of the supermarkets, Food Fair, they do accept parts. So it's a similar process. The farmers will do the parts in, but again, the parts that maybe, well, in that case, when the farmers cut it for themselves, they don't need to send any broken wings anymore because you already cut it.
Right.
So you send the quality parts. When you sell the whole chicken, well, that's when the supermarkets will have to remove them.
Okay. On the issue of parts in, again, how profitable would that be is a question, because from my own experience, I tried to part a batch of birds that I had, and almost 30-something chickens killed or slaughtered. And how much wings do you get? Because one wing can't weigh nothing much, so you need about sometimes 5 wings, 6 wings to make a pound.
Right.
You see, so that again the whole aspect of volume come into play. The breast is okay, you might get a breast weighing a pound, and the back, maybe the leg and thigh. But when it comes for wings and stuff, how much wings can you supply on the local market if just maybe 100 birds you kill, 150, 500 birds?
Speak a little bit about some of the innovations that you would like to see taking place. Well, some that are already in existence and some that you would like to see, utilizing technology, utilizing the science in order to enhance the poultry industry in Grenada.
Yeah, well, one of the industries, the creation of the protein from waste project. So that's something that was in effect some years back, and there's a long history behind it. I don't have all the details, but that there was some internal conflict, and they're no longer operational. But that is something that we would like to revive. We unofficially have been in contact with the cooperative body, and that's something that we want to encourage to
So we're referring now to the waste from the chicks that can be utilized, let's say, as manure, etc.
No. So the protein from waste, they were using the fish, the same fish.
Okay, so we're talking now for the feeding of birds.
Yes.
Right.
So that's something that they would have used in the past,
right,
to create a high protein, chicken.
And I think it's important that the listeners and viewers understand this. So you're saying that the waste, the things that we throw away from cleaning fish, so the gill, etc., can be converted into a protein additive.
It's a supplement.
It's a supplement for chicks, and there ought to be some conversations between the fishing industry, let's say marketing board, and the poultry industry. I don't know how it will all come together, so that is not something that we have to import in terms of the protein additive to the feed.
Yeah, that's correct. Because they did it in the past, and they would have gotten it tested and everything, and it showed that it was containing like 65% protein. So it's a very concentrated. It's a high protein meal that is a good feed supplement.
Okay.
That is one way of using what we call alternative feed source. Right. So instead of we inputting fish meal for Caribbean Argo to blend in the feed, because the protein content of your feed determines the value of your feed, really. Right. So whether it's 14% protein or 15% protein, and again the cost of your feed is dependent on the percentage of protein present in your feed. Right. So my take is that if you have a local source of this raw material that can be converted into something that can be used into feed processing, then it augurs well for maybe, easily available, maybe at a lower price, maybe at a lower price. I'm using the word maybe.
Right, understood.
Yeah.
But there is a possibility if we can bring this additive to the Caribbean agro industries at a lesser cost than they're importing now, then the cost of feed to farmers will go down because their inputs will go down, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, the actual agreement that Caribbean Agro has had, and I'm using the word had, in 1977, 79. Right, 79, 79, 77, 79, provides that this is one of the conditions that if the local material can be found in Grenada, then the preference is to buy it from farmers. The thing about it is there is no collaboration with what happens in the fishing industry, what happens at the feed mill, so that all our fish gill or the offals from fish, it goes into waste and we throw it away.
So somebody needs to be a conduit between the likes of Spice Isle Fish House and others to ensure that the fish meal, the gill and so is processed in order for the chicken feed to take place. And there is a ready market because of the provisions within the setting up of the Caribbean agro industries. Okay. The marketing, what has been done to raise, or has anything been needed to raise public awareness for the consumption of local chicken as compared to imported? In other words, to ensure that your product goes off the shelf quickly, goes off first, which of course would incentivize you to increase on your production.
So I know that the government has had a few initiatives. I have seen some adverts, very little, but talking about the benefits of local chicken. And I know some efforts have been made for some of the school feeding programs to purchase locally, and that's something that was mentioned in the policy that they want to improve on. So that is one of the ways. But as for a consistent way of marketing that we've had, I'm not aware of. That's something that we need to incorporate now, because that's we don't do that nearly as often enough.
I don't think that much enough is done on that issue. Now we have to look at it from that standpoint. You have the frozen imported chicken that comes in here at a much cheaper price.
And that's why I wanted to ask, that was my next question. Why should I pay $3 per pound more for local? I'm already a patriot.
No, these chickens, some of them land here maybe 85, 96 cents, right? Landed fee.
Right.
So you're talking about frozen imported chicken landing in Grenada at that price, competing against local produced chicken that is produced at a high cost of production. It's obvious the cost per pound for the local chicken is always higher, right, than the frozen imported chicken. How do we sell that, to our consumers in Grenada? And that requires education.
So share with us, is local chicken only fresher, or is it also healthier? Now, making a distinction between the two deliberately, and probably you can Nugent, tell us about the science. I understand that I know from slaughter to table, local chicken will get there faster. Fact, no problem with that. Is it also healthier for us, or is it filled with the same steroids, etc., that we will get from our largest importer, which is Brazil?
And I said to you, local chicken is 1,000 times healthier than the imported frozen chicken. One, though it is banned internationally to use growth promotants and enhancers in chicken production, we in Grenada have no clue whether or not the chickens that we get in, they are still produced with growth enhancers and promotants, right? What we do know, what we produce locally, the only thing that is in that feed, that is in that chicken, is the bacteriostat that is put into the feed when Caribbean Agro makes that feed, right? But in terms of growth promotants and other, enhancers, our chicken are void of that. So so it makes it much healthier. Not just that. My knowledge is that sometimes we eat chicken that is imported chicken that might be as much as 5 years, 10 years old. Right? Again, the producer in the US or in Brazil, his chicken comes under scrutiny, and USDA or the regulatory body says, hey, you have to dump that. The cost of dumping that chicken for this company is so expensive that we
say they dump it on us.
It's better for him to just call somebody in Grenada, or somebody in Haiti, or somebody in the Caribbean and say, hey, I have some chicken here, I can give you for 43 cents a pound. He takes the deal. All they just do is just change the tag, the date of production tag, right? And this chicken enters.
Oh, you say this happens?
Yeah, this happens all the time.
Because I know recently, and recently meaning probably about 4 or 5 years ago, is when we instituted in terms of changing our own laws to bar chicken that is more than 10 years old from coming in, which means that we could have chicken, as you said, 5 years plus that can still come to market. And there is no regulation, no testing, not necessarily any knowledge as to what the inputs in terms of the growth of those chicken is what you're saying.
So then the whole aspect of education is where now the Ministry, Agriculture, Education, GFC, GFNC, Grenada Food and Nutrition Council, all those are the entities that need to collaborate together and say, look, we have these are the nutrient content of this feed, this is how much grams of protein, so that you sell it to people to eat more of the local, buy more of the local, and that is how we would increase the local production market. But again, it's a competition with cost. A mother of 5 children would always find it easier to buy a 2 pound back and a 2 pound back that is just $2.50 as against to come and buy, a pound breast. Breast is still about $12 a pound.
It's more than that in the supermarkets. It's as much as 14, 15.
So when people look at the economics, people go now not for quality because it's more of a belly full. They're going for how much they can, what is the spending power of the dollar.
Right. And what are some of the things can we do, and this is part of the conversation that we're having, to lower the cost of production of local chickens so that we actually can be more competitive, right? There is added value in terms of health and freshness, but at the end of the day, it's $200 I have to spend on groceries. So I have to make a decision, how do I balance health and freshness versus the volume that I need to take care of my family? Yeah.
I think from a production standpoint, volume is what we have to aim at. The more we produce, is the less would be the cost of production, and that is why there needs to be an environment where we know what our production system is like. And so far, the best model that has proven to work is the vertical integrated model, where you have maybe one producer or few producers who control all factors of production, and in that system you have growth farmers on contract, who would grow chickens for you, and therefore production becomes, the cost of production becomes easier.
Right.
But volume, we have to look at volume, and in our case, most of our farmers are small farmers that produce very little amounts, so there had to be some form of amalgamation, coming together of farmers, and of course, there needs to be the conversation where we know what our national consumption requirements are. So let's say, for example, we know that we importing 20 million pounds of chicken. If we want to take a percentage out of that, it may require us to produce maybe about 9 million pounds. How many farmers do we need to produce 9 million pounds locally? Right?
And I think that's where we're going. If we heard recently in terms of the national poultry policy, the conversation is for local production to get to about 40% of our consumption, which means about 9 million is what we're actually looking for locally. Jeremy, are your members willing to cooperate, to have a superstructure that they feed into that can bring about the type of efficiencies that Nugent is speaking of? Or are we still between crabs in a barrel, one man,
So that is something that a lot of farmers have actually raised, that they want to see, centralized processing. Maybe not in the same way as, the larger producers would supply, because I know how it works in Trinidad, for example, the suppliers would supply the farmers with chicks and feed. The farmers just basically house them and sell it back. So they're just being paid for the use of the pen and the time. I guess there are alternate ways of doing that where the farmers could actually purchase the chickens and the feed and sell it back, but it's a similar process. That is something that many farmers here have asked for, and it's something that we do want to look into, centralized processing, because a lot of farmers, as you know, the most labor-intensive part is the slaughtering.
Right.
So if farmers could just have a chance to, have that done by another entity and they just house the chicks, that's something that they want. So
okay, we need to get into some of the future looks for it and the role of the likes of a GIDC, Greener Development Bank, and others. But it is time for final break. So let's take that break, and listeners and viewers, we'll be right back.
Get ready! A new season of the Grenleg Debates is coming. Informative, impromptu, bright young minds sparking powerful ideas. Tune in.
Are you looking for a reliable, affordable, and customer-friendly pharmacy? Look no further than Hills and Valley Pharmacy, the nation's leading healthcare products and services provider. We are committed to serving you at convenient locations. Find an extensive and affordable selection of prescription and over-the-counter drugs and medical supplies at Church Street, Hillsborough, Carriacou, Jubilee Street, Grenville, St. Andrew, near the bus terminal, and Halifax and Grenville Street, St. George. Our committed team is always available to offer valuable assistance for managing your health and wellness. Discover the additional benefits of our wholesale distribution on Halifax Street and our Medcare Center on Grenville Street, where we provide in-house physiotherapy, massage therapy, doctor consultations, and eye care services. Our commitment is to satisfy all your healthcare needs, including competitive prices, loyalty rewards, and special discounts for seniors. Contact us at 435-6904 and WhatsApp 535-4734. Choose Hills and Valley Pharmacy. Remember, your health is our business.
It's the event you won't want to miss. GIDC Business Deals Day is happening on Saturday, October 12th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at the Frequenty Industrial Park playing field. Explore the latest products and service offerings from businesses within the industrial parks. Enjoy discounts on GIDC business support services and get fantastic deals on household items, building materials, accessories, condiments, and more, with exciting prizes up for grabs throughout the day. But that's not all. Dive into a mini health fair and career expo for valuable health education and employment opportunities, all while enjoying the songs of Trio the Band and DJ Graphic Sounds. It will be a fun-filled day filled with eats, drinks, games, deals, and more. Mark your calendars and join the GIDC at Frequenty Industrial Park playing field on Saturday, October 12th from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. See you there.
viewers and listeners, we're talking the future of the poultry industry here in Grenada. Before we go into some of the policy directions, we had a shortage of eggs a couple of months ago. What is the cause of that? I think last Christmas there was also a challenge when everybody was driving all around looking for eggs, couldn't find eggs. What brings about this type of shortage?
Well, I think it's lack of proper planning and record keeping. Speaking from a production standpoint, there needs to be a conversation as to, by now we should know what quantity of egg we need, when, because egg really comes, the demand for egg is like a seasonal thing. You know, Easter, everybody baking, so they want egg. You know, school opening in September, children have to go to school, you would see a rise in the demand for egg. And of course, Christmas is when everybody who never baked during the year would want to make a cake.
I find you attacking me personally.
So, what I've known happening over the years, which is not a proper gauge, sometimes there is this reliance of how much chicken, how much Dowe layers that we import into Grenada. Right? The problem with that, with that, system is that Jeremy, through the association, might bring in 4,000 layers, right, for the year. But how much of these 4,000 layers really make it to production? So you calculate your egg based on 4,000. But what happened if Brown had a mortality rate of 50%?
Right.
It means therefore that the figures that you're putting out, they are not actually the figure that you have on the ground, right? So I think there needs to be a greater collaboration between the ministry and producers. So therefore there should be a database, right, set up, and all who are your egg producing.
Is this something for the ministry or is this something for your association?
Well, it is in the interest of both the ministry and the association, because the thing is, when eggs are in shortage, the pressure is on the ministry to make sure that this shortage is taken care of. I mean, when I was in the ministry, we get dozens of application, from major hotels and supermarket permission to bring in eggs, right? But because a couple years ago eggs were, we were at a position where we were almost self-sufficient, right? You of course want to protect your farmers locally, so that you only allow a certain amount to be on the market, so that you won't put a glut here that your farmers cannot get the eggs here. So that's what I'm saying. There needs to be a collaboration, but there needs to be some direct intervention dialogue with the local producer, so that we know at every one point, at any point in time, what is the actual production on the ground.
The majority of the consumption, I mean, socially, right? I'll call names, so there's free advertising. KFC, we eat a lot of chicken. You can't pass a KFC without a line. Every 50 feet, there's a barbecue stand. That is not local chicken, but being hugely consumed. Will we ever get to a point where we see local chicken at the KFC, local chicken on the barbecue stand? Is this a reality? Or something that we just started saying ain't happen?
Well, I don't want to say it's not going to happen, but it's going to be very difficult. For something like, because the poultry policy, as we say, we want 40%. If we do get to that 40% stage, that could happen. No, it's just getting to that stage, because we want to keep our balance. We don't want, to force 40% local when the price of production is so high, and as you were saying, local chicken is so expensive. So we have 40%, and then the farmer's happy, but the nation is crying out because the price of chicken just skyrocketed. So you want to keep a balance to the point that you can have, keep both the farmers and the nation happy.
And part of the national poultry policy and the consultation that took place early on this year, I believe it was in May, and there was representation from CARICOM. CARICOM is a thrust to 25 and 2025, 25% homegrown, as it was in the agricultural sector by 2025. How quickly do you believe the poultry industry can contribute to that?
Well, we'll have a lot of work to do. That's all I can say.
All right.
Well, the rate of application in that in that case depends largely on what is government policy direction, because in Trinidad, because I studied in Trinidad, almost every fast food place in Trinidad use locally produced chicken. Right? And that is because there was a policy direction from the government of Trinidad and Tobago to increase tariff on foreign chicken, ramp up local production. There are 4 major producers in Trinidad. Right? I had the privilege of doing some research and study at one of them. 4 major producers, and each of these major producers, they have what we call growth. They have their own farms, but they have contracted farmers, right? So then we're talking about again, volume, right? So I'm saying we can have local chicken at KFC, right? But it has to be, government has to create that enabling environment for farmers, and part of that enabling environment, you cannot ask farmers to increase local production when the cost and the burden of the farmer. Because where would the farmer get the financing from?
Understood. And we certainly want to address the financing aspect of it. 440-1252, that's the number to contribute to our conversations, and we do have our first caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome. We don't, so not as yet. So 440-1252, that's the number. Should we see some of the CBI funds, which we talk about, no longer CBI, the Migration Investment Agency funds that they were able to attract, geared towards the poultry industry, just recognizing what our import bill is. The using, for example, of the fish gills, etc., to create the feed. Should we be able to walk into a GIDC and see this as one of the projects that is earmarked for Grenada's development? Should a poultry farmer be able to walk into GDB and know that he has access to financing? These are some of the things that, one, you would like to see, and two, is that part of the national poultry policy that we're looking to launch out on?
I would certainly think so.
Yeah, well, access to financing, it is part of the national poultry policy, and that is a problem that a lot of farmers are facing, starting up, expanding, and especially now where we want farmers to expand because we're at 5%.
But not just expanding and starting up. One of the challenges we have in Grenada is housing. Right. Now, if the houses are not built properly, and especially now where we're having adverse weather condition, we have to build smart now, right? Because a lot of people do not think that the environment affects chicken, right? Heat affects broiler production, right? Heat affects egg laying production. Right, so that we have to build the pens now to specification, and I'm saying these funds would welcome, but I would like to see that the ministry, in collaboration with Ministry of Health and if it's physical planning, that there is some model, a standard, so anybody who wants to get into poultry production should know that they have to do application, that they have to come to the ministry. Specifications are there in terms of how do you build that pen.
So you're talking climate smart pens, you're talking about floor space in terms of how much square footage per chicken. Those are things, are these parts of the policy so that you can have that directive coming from a policy standpoint?
It's not part of the policy.
Okay, we do have our first caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
Hello, good night.
Hello, good night.
Hello, good night. Hello, good night.
Listen through the telephone and just go ahead. We're hearing you clearly.
Hello, good night.
Go ahead.
Good night. Now, I've been listening to this program here. I've been listening to this program here, and it's very much interesting.
The caller seemed to be having some problems. Caller, if you can give us a call back. Once you call, you get connected. Listen on your phone, not the television, not the radio. Must be on your phone so that you can have the conversation with us in real time. Waste disposal. Is this part of the policy? How do farmers treat with waste disposal at this time?
Right now, waste is disposed at the Perseverance. That was a part of reviving the protein from waste project, because the offal from the chicken, all of that is utilized as well, along with the fish waste.
Okay.
So that's something that could be reused to create protein.
And the next aspect to that is increased pig production. All of your offals is an excellent source of protein for farmers who rear pigs.
Right. Okay, we do have another caller online. Good evening, caller, and welcome.
Hello, good evening. I was wondering if you have any intentions of developing into a partnership or cooperative, at least.
Mr. President, I know you're registered now as a non-profit organization. Is there any intentions to developing cooperatives? And I guess the caller is alluding to collaboration to get economies of scale and reduce pricing.
Well, currently it's registered as a non-profit. There has been an initiative, I would say, by the Ministry of Agriculture to start a cooperative that is supposed to work along with the Poultry Association, but the Poultry Association itself is expected to stay as a non-profit.
Okay, okay. Let me just throw something wild out here. We no longer have a Marketing and National Importing Board, but can a new look MNIB be beneficial to the Poultry Producers Association?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And share, how do you
in fact, before that conversation, I was part of a committee. In fact, when Peter Andol was acting chair of Marketing Board, we actually constituted a committee that was looking into the marketing of eggs, for example. Marketing Board was willing to buy the eggs from farmers so that farmers no longer would have to look for individual markets.
Yeah.
All of the egg is bought from, by Marketing Board, and all who want egg, hotels and supermarket, they would buy from the Marketing Board. In fact, they also had intention of doing a distribution, nationwide.
Okay. We have another caller online. Good evening, caller. Welcome.
Good night, dear. On the question of poultry farming and agriculture in general, one of the extremely critical things is the question of financing. And how the financing is addressed with regard to the production of crops or the production of poultry or husbandry. You cannot have a situation in Grenada where loans to the community of farming, fishing, poultry, animal husbandry is done as though it's a wholesale enterprise, importing goods and selling it. So that's one thing that needs to be fixed. And it needs to be addressed by the government as the development bank. And also with other institutions who have deposits. So, for example, in the year 1980, I had the opportunity to work with a gentleman by the name of Mr. Morris Nayak. And he had an overdraft of over $250,000 at the Royal Bank of Canada. At the time, he was managing two estates. He was able to pay off it. He was able to do what he needed to do so that he can get his production. I am listening to your guests, and I think this is the whole question of finance that needs to be addressed. And that is not really being addressed, because at the end of the day, people will only get into production of poultry if there is a profit at the end of the day.
Thank you very much, caller. So access to financing and concessional financing, not competing with other entities by way of what the interest rate would look like. Any conversations on caps, maximums in that regard? And what are you faced now? If you walk into a GDB as a poultry farmer, what type of interest rates are you faced with now?
So I'm not familiar with the exact interest rate right now, but so that is a complaint that many farmers would have had, access to financing. So that is something, well, we're working more with the ministry, because that is also part of the poultry policy, to make financing more readily available to farmers, as well as concession on poultry equipment, vehicles used for farming. So that is already being worked on, the concession part. For the most part, I believe that there is access to concession right now when you apply for.
And alongside that one, sound business plans I think would be important, because at the end of the day, people would want to make their money back.
But just a quick thing on the concession issue. Something has to be done to arrest that situation. Government gives concession on almost everything for agriculture. The problem is the concessions are not trickling down to the farmer. I mean, just imagine you walk into one of the supply stores for poultry, and just a simple automatic waterer has touched $200 and something. And you see these things online, sometimes for under 10 US.
I haven't seen it that low, but yeah, well, it's much cheaper online, yeah.
Right. But maybe not 10, but it's a lot cheaper out there than what is being offered here, and that is the next constraint. You know, the inputs that you need to put into production is so expensive.
Right. What type of relationship does the Grenada Association of Poultry Producers have with, let's say, the real representation? Because we're talking about advocacy now. So the private sector representative within the Senate, the agriculture representative within the Senate. Is it a good, strong relationship where you can expect good advocacy, and by virtue of that, sound policy turning into law and enforced?
Well, with the Poultry Association being as disorganized as it has been over the past few years, I wouldn't say that the relationship is bad. It's just that we need to work on it, to work together more. That's something we need to work on.
Okay. I know the senator has tried a lot in terms of when I was at the ministry. He has a very keen interest, in agriculture and poultry being part of it.
Yeah, we've had a few meetings with senators as well.
Yeah, right. But I think a lot more could be done. And again, policy direction, there has to be, in my opinion, a broader base for that discussion. Because of course, you're drafting a policy. You need people in that mix who are technicians. People who are aware of what the industry is, what is the trend of the industry, so that you can sit down and really put things together to make the thing make sense.
Okay. What are some of the highlights, as you'd have seen the draft policy being moved forward? What are some of the highlights of the policies, the things that you like, and some of the things that you believe seem to be missing? Either of you can respond.
Well, I would start with some of the things that I would say are missing. So we want 40% of the market. I don't see much details given as to how exactly we're going to go about getting that. Right. So that's something that we need to work on in terms of the laws and what exactly are we doing to get that 40%.
So what would be the approach? Would it be one of the cooperatives? Would it be dedicate additional land space, probably government lands, to increase the volume of production? Is it the conversations between the different sectors to lower the cost of the inputs? Those are the type of things that you'd want to see being institutionalized so that you can bring benefits to you as a farmer, but certainly to us as a population. Is that
all of it? Yeah.
Okay.
Especially where we need to know, and I'm talking from a production standpoint again, we cannot be VOOPing, right? And I call it VOOP.
Right.
We need to be deliberate. What is the quantity of imported chicken that we're bringing in? What is the quantity that we have as local production? What do we want to see? Right? So it's more like we are dominated by foreign imported chicken. So we want to take piece of that market. There needs to be a collaboration, because you have major suppliers on island. And trust me, I don't think anybody expects these guys to just sit back and allow a 40% would be eroded from them.
So you're referring to now the importers?
Yeah, there must be a conversation so that we must know at any given time how much chicken do we need in terms of poundage produced locally? How many farmers do we need to give us that target? Where are these farmers going to get the money from? There should be some soft loan available, very low interest rate that allow the farmers to, the farmers to have a little breather, a little breather, so that he can go to GDP and be assured that he is borrowing $40,000 to put on a unit that can hold 30,000 chicken. And when he grows that chicken to maturity, he has a market that he doesn't have to hurt his head for. So once he knows that he has a market, he's producing, he knows how his revenue is coming to pay back that loan. I'm telling you, this farmer would be more than interested in getting involved. Mm-hmm. Even young people will get involved, because the reality is poultry, there is money in poultry. And I ain't telling you that. I don't mean like a record tipping and thing, and I see the little figures. And if somebody comes real seriously and they, volume, at least you can make a comfortable living.
Right. Okay. Any things that you would that you see within the policy that say yes, we're moving in the right direction?
Yes, I think the intention of the policy is okay, but like as Jeremy was saying, from my standpoint, again, given my production background, I would like to see something that give the policy teeth. Right? There is nothing that commit any of the suppliers right now to this 40%. Right? So they go about the business as usual, importing as much as they want. And the strange thing about it is the permission for the import comes from the ministry. Right? So it's like you really cannot shoot yourself in your own foot. You can't tell me you want 40%, but you're giving importation permit for the same volume.
Right.
How do we increase and move the level of our production up?
Without cutting back on the availability of chicken to the overall population, because you have to grow one side and
so
draw down on
a balance.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Where do we go from here, Jeremy, in terms of your future outlooks, wish lists for the poultry industry? So as we come in, because time is almost upon us. So as we look to do some closing comments, as it were, but just as, let's say, President, what are some of the things that you would like to see, some of the areas of support from the public, from our policymakers that you would like to see to ensure that, and your own members, to ensure that the association grows, the industry grows, and Grenada benefits?
So we really need to work on collaboration, as I said, as an association, collaboration with the Ministry of Agriculture as well. The policy has been around for almost a decade, and most people right now are tired. They hear about the poultry policy and they don't want to hear anything about it again. They hear it so much and nothing is happening. So I believe with a strong association and also collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture, we also need to lobby our farmers to really push towards implementing the changes we want to see. And collaboration among farmers as well is important, in terms of the chicken and the eggs that we sell. When there is especially around Christmas time, when there's a shortage, some people will be selling a tray of eggs for $30, $40, $50. So we want to have some form of collaboration on pricing. There will be times when you probably could sell it for more, but there will be times again where there's a glut, but we want to collaborate and not undermine each other. That's something that happens at the supermarkets. Well, something I've heard that happens when there is a glut. Some farmers would come and try to offer a lower price.
Right.
So if we collaborate more, we stop undermining each other. I believe that's the step towards increasing our economies of scale, and that would be a big step towards reducing the cost of production.
Are your members registered as business owners? Because quite often, and that's what I'm talking about, the industry not being a hustle. Are they registered as business owners, file their corporate taxes, get rebates for the inputs, etc.? Are the businessmen in the poultry industry treating the poultry business as a business?
I would say many of the larger farmers are registered and many of them are not. So that's something we need to encourage as well. There was a big drive with the CES program that they had last year. Many will voluntarily, many of them would have went and gotten themselves registered, and that was a good initiative. I think that's something we need to focus more on, because a lot of people, they're not, as you say, they're not treating it like a business, proper record keeping and everything is more of a hustle. So that's something that we need to focus on.
The other thing that, just before I leave you for a closing thought on, is insurance. Is there any investment insurance of your produce? So if we have a Hurricane Beryl, you can recoup. Does that exist? Is it a direction we should be moving towards?
Currently, no, it does not exist, and yes, that's definitely something we would want to do, we want to work towards in the future.
Okay. Eugene, let's go to personnel, because you spoke quite a bit of the science of the poultry industry. How do we equip individuals who are interested, or individuals who might have the skills to become interested in the industry, to make sure that we do this better?
I think, first of all, I think we need to have, I don't know if it's a survey or whatever it is, but we need to reach out to the public to find out the level of interest. And having identified who are the persons interested, in getting involved within the industry, there need to be some form of leverage where these people, most of them whom would not have the initial startup capital, they should be able to go to an institution that says to them, hey, we can borrow you X amount of money at X interest rate, collaborate with the Ministry of Agriculture in standardizing, the housing and having necessary training as to how you manage these birds from day old onto slaughter, or from day old onto egg production. Training farmers to record keeping and all things, so that you can see how your business is going. At the end of the tunnel, you can see the level of profitability, know your cost of production. Right. I think those are the areas that we need to.
Would you suggest, let's say, a standardized, because as you speak of record keeping, this is something that your association can do, and that this is a format, because there's privacy issues, so you don't want to centralize it. But if farmers have this is the format, then they can just plug in numbers and get a sense as to what are their real costs, what is their revenues like, what type of markup makes sense, what type of price they ought to accept and reject.
We don't have a format at the moment, but I think, and I discussed that, with the president, training of our farmers is a critical way, for us to grow. Much of our farmers, I don't think they have the necessary science, know-how. They're just in it for a lot of years, and that's why they're not moving, because they're not doing anything based on how it should be done. So I think that's a direction that we need to go. And we live now in a technological age, a lot of smart farmers now, so that we get a template or whatever it is, and show them, for those who cannot manage it, maybe the children, most of our children, they are smart, even smarter than us when it comes to the technology. Right. But this is the direction that we need to go.
Mr. Eugene Bernard, President Jeremy Thomas, thank you so very much for sharing with us, members of the executive of the Grenada Association of Poultry Producers, and for you, ladies and gentlemen, for being a part of this conversation as we discuss the future of the poultry industry under its new leadership. Poultry is critically important to us. We still only produce a mere 5% of what we consume. Lots of inroads to make there. But let me also urge you to support our poultry farmers. It will cost you a little bit more. I understand that. I accept that. But that too will be part of our investment in supporting this industry in order for it to grow, to get to the 40%, that the national policy speaks to, and assure that we thrive and more of Grenadian money remains in Grenada. Thank you so very much for being a part of this evening's program, and I look forward to being with you again in 6 days, 22.5 hours. Have a good evening. Godspeed. Thank you.